Growing threat that's turning people into what some are calling living zombies. For example, in Philadelphia, zombie-like addicts, their nearly lifeless bodies covered with sores, causing their limbs to rot.
You'd see people kind of like walking around looking like animals when their knuckles are touching the ground.
Seen nodding out and falling over along Philadelphia's notorious Kensington Avenue are also developing dangerous sores on their bodies. Ralph Dixon, a lifelong Philadelphia resident, told us he's never seen anything like what's happened with Tranq.
This is the United States. Hey everyone, it's Dr. Dan. If you haven't heard already, Tranq Dope, or the zombie drug, has been hitting the streets of our metropolitan cities. Tranq Dope, what a fabulous name, let me tell you. It's actually the combination of two medicines, one of which you've probably heard of for years now, fentanyl, but the other one we're a little less familiar with because it's called Xylazine. Fentanyl, as we know, is actually 50 times more potent than heroin, and it's actually 100 times more potent than morphine. I mean, there's a reason people get so easily hooked on it. But this is nothing new. We've heard about this for years, for decades now. But what about Xylazine? What the heck is Xylazine? So, believe it or not, Xylazine is actually a medicine, but hold on to your thoughts there. It's a medicine that is used in veterinary practice or in animal experimentation. So you heard me right. It's approved for veterinary practice, meaning it's only used in animals and pets. Yet we use it on each other. But the way the medicine works is that it gives us the ability for analgesia, which is handling our pain. You have muscle relaxation, and of course you have sedation. And the way it works, it actually is very similar to clonidine. What it does, and just like clonidine, it inhibits our neuron transmission. Your pain stimuli is negated from passing through. And this effect actually stems from the brainstem, no pun intended, all the way down to our spinal cord, all the way to our peripherals. In the eyes of a drug dealer, this is probably the perfect medication. It's cheap and I'm assuming easy to get. It mimics the effects of heroin and cocaine, which I would assume is hard to get and very expensive to buy. And why give people struggling with addiction and battling this every day the good stuff when you can easily just give them or slip them in some Xylazine? It just really sickens me that we do this to one another just for the sake of making an extra $50 or an extra $100, extra $1,000. We're playing with people's lives, people who have family, people who depend on these people who have savings that they're saving for something big down the line. But this is what we choose to do. So we know what fentanyl does. We now know what Xylazine does. When you put these two match made in heaven drugs together, you get the zombie drug. Zombie drug? Why is it called that? Aside from the amazing headlines these news agencies have just been waiting for, I mean, when you hear or see zombie drug, you definitely want to click on it to see what's going on. But outside of that, the name is actually quite literal. These patients who are taking this combination of Tranq Dope actually start looking and behaving like a zombie. The reason all of these patients start looking like zombies, and I know it's a fun spin to put on things, but it's actually a very gruesome side effect. When these patients are using Tranq Dope or the zombie drug, they get a lot of skin rotting or necrosis. The reason something like this happens is because in the moment of sedation or any other medicinal intervention, and something like this actually happens at the hospital quite often when we use pressors, but that is a different video and a different topic. But what ends up happening is that our body's one sole mission is to survive. So when it sees that our blood pressure is going down and we need to spike that back up, guess what happens? Our body actually takes our blood supply, and instead of holding it hostage, I guess you can say, in our peripherals, meaning our hands, our arms, our legs, it shifts it to our vital organs, heart, liver, brain. And so what ends up happening, all of our peripheral tissue now has low blood perfusion, or that's just a fancy way of saying low blood flow. This is really important to know because once our muscles and all of our tissues receive less blood flow, that means they're getting less oxygen and less protection from lymphocytes, or what we all know them as white blood cells. Less oxygen leads to our muscle tissue and cells to die, which becomes known as necrosis, so it's literal rotting of the flesh. But also when we don't have white blood cells coming to the source of a cut or the source of an infection, guess what happens? Those areas become more inflamed, they become more infected, and all those little cuts that used to look very simple and not really too inspiring are now full-blown infections eating away the skin and leading even to skin ulcers. There's a bunch of images online, and if you want to see what that looks like, please go to Google, but user discretion is highly advised. The reason this combination is so problematic because these patients are using this Tranq Dope, they're getting all of these lesions and these ulcers and necrosis and skin rotting, which leads to immense pain. But both of these drugs are there to help with the pain, so these patients keep abusing and abusing the cycle over and over again. Not only does the combination of fentanyl with xylazine cause the zombie-like appearance, remember, it also gives us that sedation, that high that everyone's always gunning for. But there's other things that it does. Believe it or not, it's actually genotoxic, which means it can damage our DNA. It's also carcinogenic, which means it can cause cancer. And why not throw a little fun fact? It actually inhibits insulin, which means a lot of these people are experiencing hyperglycemia and the side effects that's associated with it. Combine everything that we just talked about into one injection, and you get the most dangerous and the most deadly combination of drugs to hit the streets of which we all share. We all cross to go to work. We take the subway to take our loved ones to show them around. That is what we're dealing with, especially when you see those videos that I played in the beginning. And the saddest part about this entire story is not just the pain that these patients are experiencing, not just about how they literally cannot breathe from the respiratory depression that they experience when these two drugs are together interacting. It's just we could have prevented this. The reason I say that we could have prevented this is because it has gotten very popular over the last few months here in the United States. But guess who has been battling this addiction to this medication, to Tranq Dope, the zombie drug? Puerto Rico. And guess when they started dealing with this? 10 years ago. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of today's video, and I really hope you took something away because we can really make a difference. However, it always comes down to awareness and talking to the right people who actually give a damn. If you want to learn more and join me on simplifying the complex world of medicine, please consider subscribing to this channel, because every time you subscribe and you like and you share a video, that's $1 less on my doctoral loans. With that being said, now we can all have a good laugh. You take care, and I'll see you on the next video.